Yep. Cool. Since everybody's back, let's start chapter 2. Let's talk about the notes and the mortgages. So, share files, and this one. Share now. Okay, so whenever we talk about the notes and mortgages, usually in the lay language, okay, let me close it for one moment and let you look at me instead. I ask everybody to look at me. How big is my screen? Like, how big is the screen that shows my face? Why don't I? Almost the whole window. Oh, okay, that's good. Oh, half a box for you. Okay. Okay. Okay, because in my place it's like a tiny, like a 2 centimeter little square, so I thought, you know. Oh, cool. So, okay, let's stop here and let's talk about whenever we are talking about mortgages, what do you think about? Anybody? Being homeowner, yeah. Dollar, it's about money, yeah, of course. You borrow money, you securitization, yes. And mortgages can be pulled together and create new security on it. Buying a house, 30 years usually, right? So secured interest, yes. So, okay, all of those are true, but most of it is really looking at the loan part. You're looking at a mortgage as a loan. So when we are talking about in lay language, the term mortgage actually has two different parts. One part is that you are going to pay back the loan. So you're borrowing a 30-year loan with either a fixed rate or floating rate, some kind of term, and whenever you don't pay it back, you will have this and that incurred, right? So on the other hand, the financial terminology, the typical mortgage means the act that you are pledging your property as a collateral in order to borrow. Does that make sense? So when we were talking about in lay language, that mortgage, that whole term should be actually in a professional language should have two different parts. The note part, which is the debt or the loan part, and the mortgage part, which is the act that you're pledging your property in order to borrow that loan. That makes sense. So there are two layers of contracts, and the first part is just like any kind of debt. You have to talk about the term of it, how you're returning it, what's the interest rate, what's the monthly payment, those kind of things. So there is another part, however, is about the mortgage itself. It's about that you're pledging your property as a collateral. So in order to make sure that the lender has its proper rights to the collateral, you as a borrower has certain level. You as a borrower has a certain level of obligation. So for example, you will have to maintain your house. You will have to have put out reasonable effort to maintain your house value. If there's something broken, you cannot leave it broken because that could potentially lead to more property damage. And that property all of a sudden, as if it's not yours, as if I said it's technically, it is yours, but remember, it is also the pledge or collateral for your lender. So they will have to make sure you do certain things to preserve their value so that your mortgage or your note part is still remaining as a relatively low level of risk. So in that sense, whenever we actually talk about those contracts, we do have to separate those. Okay, so now let's look at here. Okay, now again a little bit of survey. Now how big is my screen? Like the screen that you can see me? Do you see me at all on the side or only? Okay, small. How small it is? Like in terms of a fraction, a quarter of the. It's you and you're in a corner now. Okay, so on the side, small box, a bottom screen, a corner. I'm talking about, well, not the textbook, but the slides. So the slides is now in the main screen, right? You're at the right corner, 4 times 6. Oh, okay, it's not bad. Okay, cool, thank you. Because I don't know, just want to know. And okay, so I'm glad that you can still see my face, and I think it's nice that you to imagine that. Okay, so thank you, Willem. So that is why when we actually start and talk about concepts in the notes and mortgages, we will first have to separate the notes and mortgages. Okay. Yes, these slides will be posted. That's right. And I will start to do certain things on the slides. I hope I can do that. Can I write something on it? Let's see. Controls. Can I write things on it? Oh, unfortunately not. Okay. Oh, I so wish I could write things on the slides. Can I write things on the slides? Guess the answer is no. Okay. I'm sorry, I'm just still new to this thing. Still experimenting. Okay, so if I want to write anything, I will have to switch to a whiteboard real quick. Okay, that works. So first of all, let's talk about the notes part. So in order to define a note, the left-hand side is a box with a magnifying glass. You can zoom in and out and expand. And okay, let's see. So you are actually able to type on it. Hey, who typed the JGKH thing on it? Oh, how did you do that?
I did it by clicking on the icon at the very top.
I don't see it. That's ridiculous. I'm the instructor. I should see everything. I don't have that. Darn it. See, I was wondering because I used to be able to do this. Now I don't.
Yeah, I have a T icon at the top.
Okay, let me try and try it again, okay? Let's see, share file, stop it. now. This one. That's it. No. Oh, that's so disappointing. But anyway, let's not waste any time of yours. Still prolong. Now I need to figure out how to make it a little bit smaller. No, I don't think so, William. I used to be able to do it. I just need to find out what setting I made wrong in this case. So let's move on to notes. First of all, the note part is really taking care of the debt part. Okay, so that's really the debt part. And then the major revisions. So we are going to talk about, of course, how much is the amount borrowed. We talk about the rate of interest. We talk about dollar amount, the due dates of the mortgages, a 30-year, 15-year, 10-year, 20-year, whatever your term is. Number of payments, is it annual payment, semi-annual, or monthly payment, which is monthly payment is the most common residential one, but commercial ones may have different schedule of payments because they're basically customized and negotiated. And we have maturity dates, okay? And the maturity date and the due dates are different. So the due dates are pertaining for specific payments. So we're talking about, is it the first of every year, every month, or is it 15th of every month, and so on and so forth. So those are the due dates of the payments. And the maturity date is actually the 30-year, 15-year that I was talking about before. So made a mistake. Okay. So then, of course, we need to link the note to the collateral, and that is the part we're talking about reference to the security for the loan. So that's where you were talking about this particular debt or loan or note is really using that particular property as a collateral. Okay, so then we talk about how you are going to apply the payments. And what do you mean, application of payments? Well, part of the payments will pay towards your interest. Part of payments will pay towards your principal. And how is that going to count as part of the contract? Default. Yeah, if you miss some payments, you are in default. Everybody understand that. So default is a very, very widely used term in finance, and generally means that you are violating any kind of clause of the contract or obligations that you're supposed to perform in a contract. Okay, so sometimes, well, actually most of the time, it means the default means you did not pay something or you delay your payment. But it's not all about payment. For example, what I was just talking about, if you have a hole in your roof and you did not repair it and you still have a mortgage outstanding, that is a technical default. Okay, so it's default because you should be, as part of the mortgage contract, you should be obligated to fix it, but you did not. In that sense, you violated your contract and you did not perform your whole obligation, and that makes a default. You can see like this kind of default does not involve money immediately. Okay, and then we also talk about the penalties of late payments, forbearance provisions. The forbearance basically means that we are, in case you're late, we could have the possibility of rearranging things instead of saying, oh, you're late, you default immediately, foreclosure. That's not necessary. Okay, so sometimes the borrowers say, hey, wait a moment, give me a little time. I'm out of job for this 2 months, but I've already have something going on. Already have interviews. I should be landing up on a job real soon, so give me some time. I'll start making regular payments again. So in that case, some of the lender will agree to give you forbearance and rearrange the payment. But most of the time they will change the interest rate a little bit, and sometimes they will have a little change in the application of the payments. Okay, so then we have the provisions for unscheduled payments. And what is the unscheduled payments here we're talking about?
Early payments.
Yeah, early payments. And most of the residential mortgage payments, you can choose to prepay, and it's allowed, and because I think it's a protected right by certain kind of act. I don't know exactly what act number it is, but people are somehow, like the government or the legal system or judges believe that people are entitled to this right to prepay their mortgage. So that will be a part of the arrangements. Okay, and then you also need to negotiate on the notifications. So in case you are in default, can you still see me? I guess not.
No.
Okay. There. Looks like your connection's poor right now. You guys are seeing my video in lower quality? Oh, this is getting annoying.
I don't see you
Okay.
at all.
Oh. Okay.
And you're
Sure.
back.
No.
You were.
Okay. We have better Wi-Fi. Darn it. Okay, I'll give up trying. I'll try to be animated in my voice. So you can see, you can imagine my face when you hear my voice. But we'll go from there. Okay, so oh, thank you. So notification of default and acceleration clause. So basically this one is talking about if you miss a payment, right? So if I miss a payment, maybe I didn't know, maybe I'm on vacation, maybe the automatic payment system that I usually set up is somehow not working anymore because say, I mean, weird things can happen. I mean, I may have linked it to one of my cards or some other, accounts that for whatever reason is temporarily putting a hold on my account, or maybe I lost my card and they are temporarily suspending my account and changing the information and things like that, and prevent a draft or withdrawal from the account. In that case, I am technically in a default position, and I may or may not know it. So this is the one basically saying that, well, if you're in default or you have triggered acceleration clause, how are you going to be notified, and how much ahead of time you have to be notified in order for that to happen. So by the way, acceleration clause, that is basically saying that you have to pay everything back immediately. So it's not like making it faster, it's making it happen all at once. So that's the acceleration clause. Okay. The non-recourse clause. So in US, this is in generally true. It's not necessarily true in other country, which means that if you have a property that is used as a collateral, in case you cannot pay it back, you cannot pay the bank your mortgage back, you can just, the bank will take your property And if you owe them something else on top of the property value, they don't have the right to really go after your personal property. Does that make sense? So basically, if I say my house is $500,000 worth, okay, I wish, and then I owe them somehow I owe them 700,000. Now what happens? If I owe them 700,000 and my house is 500,000, I would rather give the house back to the bank and say, hey, I'm not going to pay for 700,000 loan or mortgages. Why don't you just take my house? Yeah, yeah, that's what people say. They take the house and the lost, and they if there is non-recourse clause in your notes, then they don't have the right to go after your personal property. So your boats, your Ferrari, let's say, those are fine. Okay, you don't they have no right to come and grab your things. Exactly. So that's when you have your notes under the water and so on and so forth. Kind of nice. I know it's not true in general in China. That means if you owe the bank certain amount of mortgage, and even if your house is put back, they still have the right to go after your personal belonging and basically go and push you to pay them back. You still owe them. Okay, so that totally changes the risk profile of lending, borrowing mortgages in China or in US. Okay, so more concepts about the notes part. Loan assumability. So what is loan assumability? Basically says, well, in case I'm going to buy or sell this property to somebody else, does that person can he or she take on this mortgage and continue paying? Usually you don't see that. Usually upon sales, your mortgage is accelerated, which means that if you sell the house, you're gonna lose your mortgage. If you sell the house in a high interest rate kind of environment, then you lose your mortgage and you have to start a new one, because if you sell a house and you buy another one, and when you're buying it, you're gonna use the new current market rate, to negotiate your mortgage loan. So in low interest rate environment like right now, people don't care, loan assumability. But in the high interest environment, then people do care about that. And a lot of times it is a very nice condition if you do have that. Okay. Assignment clause. Assignment clause basically says that, well, if Bank of America lend this mortgage to me, and do they have the right to sell it to another party without my consent? So they don't even need to ask my permission in order to do that. So all they need to do is they just mail me a notification, say, hey, your mortgage has been sold to so and so, and who is going to service your mortgage, which means collecting your payments and being updated on your statements and all that. That's it. So this is usually the case here in the US, because most of them, especially the traditional ones, the conventional ones, 30-year fixed rate mortgages, will be sold to the government, will be sold to Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. So, and the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac will be packaging them together to securitize. So this is the assignment clause that allows them to do that. allows the initiator of the mortgages to do that. Okay. Then we have future advances. What is future advances? Well, some borrowers like it, some borrowers don't. Basically says that in case if you need some money over the time you've been paying the mortgage, right? So in case if you need some money, maybe you can borrow from the same lender at the same rate up to a certain limit. Let's say over the time, usually when you say when you are buying this house, you're paying 20% down, you're borrowing 80% of the house value. Okay, and over the time you pay it down to say 50-50. So you borrow 50% of the house value and your equity is 50% of the value. But in case say your kids are going to college, you want some money back, or you really need a lot of money at a time, then if you have this future advances clause, you can tell your lender, say, hey, Bank of America, I really need this amount right now, and according to our mortgages, I should be able to do some future advances up to this amount, and this is the clause that allows you to do that. So basically, it serves as a more like a home equity loan or fixed rate. Yeah, so it's like a second mortgage, but you don't have to take on a second mortgage. You don't have to go out and shopping and things, and so it's a very nice clause if you initiate it in a low interest rate environment. It will be a nice clause for the lender if you initiate it in a high interest environment, which means, well, if you cannot get a second loan, you will have to borrow from them at the same high interest rate, right? So kind of go, it's the advantage and disadvantage goes with the interest rate. Okay. Release of lien by the lender, that just means that anytime you pay down all your mortgage notes or debt that you owe them, they should release the lien. They should not have any lien on your property anymore. So that's the release of the lien. Okay. Now let's come back to the mortgage part. So remember, we talked about there's the note part, about borrowing money and so forth. And there is the mortgage part. So the note part really is talking about you borrow the money, you have the obligation to pay. And the mortgage part basically says that you pledge the property as security. Okay. And the mortgager is the borrower. So that's how we call it. The mortgagee is the lender. The mortgagee is the one you pledge your property to. So they are the lender. The mortgager is the borrower who is going to pledge their own property. Try to keep this straight and not always easy. So after you properly identify the mortgager and mortgagee, you also need to describe the property as serving as security for the loan. So you have to say this particular house, so and so road, so and so number is the property we're talking about. Okay, so it might sound super easy, but it may or may not. Okay, remember, a property has all sorts of different things. Remember that future estate, reminders, all those kind of complicated different interests of the property, those can also be pledged as a mortgage, right? So you will need to describe those in detail about what is really being pledged, what kind of interest is really being pledged. And there will be covenants of Sing and warranty. I don't know how to say it correctly. Is it Sing or Sing? Anybody knows? I guess no one. Okay, so these are more detailed stuff of the mortgages, and not many people understand it. So basically, a kind of warranty that is on the mortgage. So say, yeah, it's fairly new to me too. Okay, so it's basically a kind of warranty, and say if you have any kind of third party that is going to warrant, provide certain kind of not, I wouldn't say insurance, but like a warranty of your property, that should be noted. Okay, so if there is any covenants, that covenants are like a detailed clauses, and if there's any covenants about what you should do, what you should not do, and then what kind of warranty has to be provided, this is also in there. Okay, a provision for release of dower rights. Okay, now it lost me. What is it, dower rights? Any others? Desired covenants and contractual agreements. Oh, this part totally lost me. Okay, let me put a note in here and make sure I check on that. Mr. Dower rights. I at first thought it was other kind of things. Okay, I'm gonna check it real quick and make sure I'm talking the right thing. But let's come back after the break to talk about this. For now, let's move on. And we'll talk about continue to talk about important ones. Okay, so first of all, sometimes there are mortgages that talk about you have to provide a funds for taxes and insurance. So I think most of you, as long as you have a mortgage, you have been asked that do you want us to escrow your mortgage, or do you want to pay it themselves? And if you choose to escrow the mortgages, and then that will be the fund that we are talking about right here. So the escrow fund will be handled by the servicer of the mortgage. They will collect every month a certain amount that will be put in the account. Yeah, the taxes and the insurance. So you can choose to escrow the tax only, or you can choose to escrow the tax and the property insurance. And why do they want to do that? And some lenders actually require that you escrow. Why do you want to do that? Why do they want to do that? I mean, they are not really charging a fee on this. They're doing this for free. Why do they want to do that? So exactly, so they are lowering their risk so that you are not defaulting on the tax. You're providing proper coverage of the insurance. You're not really skipping insurance payments, so that their property is actually having lower risk of tax default, and having a lower risk of having no insurance coverage. Okay, so they're trying to protect their own rights and interests. So that is the fund for taxes and insurance. And we have charges and liens. Of course, we talked about those. Most importantly, in case of sales or in case of any kind of acceleration, who will get it first? Is there any other, like a second lien holder, third lien holder, or is there anybody above them? Or as we will see later on, if there is somebody who lend you money before these mortgage, say sometimes the seller of the house is lending, providing part of the fund for the buyer. Okay, so those are the balloon payments, like a balloon down payments. They help you make the down payments so you can have 0% down, and then you can still buy the house. Then the bank will have to make sure that they got a priority of the lien straight. Okay. Then we have hazard insurance. Of course, you have to provide those kind of insurance in order to make sure that the collateral is protected. So again, so that the lender will be subject to less types of risk and then less amount of risk. Then we talk about preservation and the maintenance of the property to maintain the collateral value. Right? So you cannot do things that is really damaging the property, of course. And also, if something is wrong, you will have to fix it up. If you don't fix it up, that will be a violation of this contract and covenants. Then we have the transfer of property or a beneficial interest in borrower. So this is how you are going to do the sales whenever you are selling or buying this property, or how you are going to do it. Either can you really let the buyer of the house to assume the property, assume the mortgage, or how is it going to be handled? So this is the transfer part. Okay, so that's a lot of talking. And any question? Just want to check real quick. So far, so good. I hope everybody's not sleeping. Okay, thank you. Continue on. Borrower's right to reinstate. Okay, so this is a little bit tricky. What is reinstate? It means it kind of was out of state somewhere, right? So this is in some state, every state has different kind of law and the legal system and conclusion and execution about this. But basically, sometimes if you're the borrower, you default or you're late for delinquent for several months. But what is the timeline for you to be able to come back to the mortgage? Okay, so say if I am delinquent only for half a year and then I start to do the payments again, well, you'll have to reinstate me. Or is it only 3 months allowed? Or is it like a 1 year allowed? Every state has different laws, and apparently California, in California, people do have a lot more lenient kind of amount of time, but it also depends on the detailed situation. So let's just keep it simple. Just keep in mind that default and the delinquent is not immediately leading to foreclosure. Okay, then we have right of entry. So for the lender in possession, what is a lender in possession? Why do lender have your house? Remember, you're the owner of the house. Why all of a sudden the lender is in possession? Well, this is when you're already defaulting, already delinquent. Yeah, exactly. So already in trouble. Okay, so a lot of times the loan is in default and in acceleration, and that's when your lender is actually taking hold of the property. And they could Okay, they could at some states come into a property. They could choose to fix it up. Yes, the homeowner can do a short sale before all of these happens. Okay, so the short sale is oftentimes happens before the big default, before those people stamp that default stamp on you. So they're trying to do the short sale is because this way they save their credit score, so it's not gonna show up as badly on their credit history. And but this is already past that stage. That after the short sale stage, then it's already default, it's already formal, things like that, and the lender is now in control of the property. So they could sell it, but meanwhile, even before they arrange to sell it, they could take possession of the property and rent it out and collect the rent to pay towards their bill. And why would they try to rent it out and instead of selling it? Remember, these are banks, right? These are not individual lenders, and they have some extra time to do flip or flop. It's not their interest. They're banks. They didn't want to do this. It's a lot of times because this is becoming necessary because the property is not in a good condition. So as normal people who are good person, they come in, they repair the house, they keep the house in a stellar position or condition. Then of course the bank can take the house and sell it in the market immediately. But a lot of times things happen. When things happening, the family could be in short of money for quite a few months. That means certain kind of damage of the property may or may not be attended to. So that's when the bank say, hey, if we still leave that hole open on the roof, then the whole house is going to be ruined. So I cannot let that happen because you're going to give me the house and walk away, sending the keys. I cannot just sit here and watch the house value be damaged from 200 grand to 100 grand, right? So I have to step in, make fixes, and meanwhile I could decide to rent it out and collect rent to go to pay towards the payment. So this is the right of entry in that typically happening in that kind of situation. Okay, and then future advances, we talked about it. And subordination clause, that's what I was talking about when the seller is giving you a balloon payment or kind of partial loan on that, and then you turn around to borrow a mortgage from a bank. Then usually the bank will need to make sure that the seller or another person who is lending to the borrower, to the mortgagor, that to make sure that they subordinate their own interest as a secondary priority. And the bank always want themselves to be the first priority. So that's always the case. As I said before, it may be in other classes that lenders don't like each other. So they don't like the existence of each other, and they would rather be the only one. But if they have to coexist with other ones, they can do that, but they have to make sure that the priority is claimed. Okay, so in case of default, a lot of people, when we talk about default, immediately we thought, oh, the bank is going to take the property. Not immediately, not that easy. Okay, so if you're talking about a default, can be as easy as skipping one payment. Technically, you're in default. But a lot of times it does not really go to foreclosure or REO, all that fancy stuff. Okay, so Usually because going REO, the real estate owned, or doing foreclosure, that process is costly for the bank too. So the bank would rather just work with you, work with the borrower or the mortgager, to rearrange the loan and to work it out somehow so that the mortgager still can come back on track on the payment and they can keep the mortgage working. So this is a win-win situation, and these are the different forms of the workouts. Okay, so first of all, they can try to restructure the loan. Okay, so instead of saying that, okay, say you borrow a 30-year mortgage, you're 10 years into it, you have another 20 years to go. Okay, so they may say, okay, let's recast the whole thing to make sure that you can temporarily be able to afford the payment right now, at least right now. Okay, it could be an extension agreement, which means that instead of having 20 years outstanding, I'm going to rearrange the whole thing so that it's another 30 years to go. Okay, so that way every month you will need to pay less, and that helps you to come back on track. And there are other alternative workouts, different ways. In general, either lower the interest or change the interest structure. Say, instead of having a one fixed rate, you might get a lower interest rate right now for the first couple of months or years, and then later on have the interest rate stepping up and back. Those kind of thing, or maybe you can take like an initial second rate or like a future advance. Yeah, sometimes yes, they can put the past due payments at the end of the debt. That's one form of recasting or extension, because this way your whole term will be better. It will be longer. Well, not necessarily. They could be stacking up the last several payments. So there are different ways to work out between the mortgager and mortgagee. And then they can talk about how you're gonna transfer. So you can think about certain ways and say, okay, the bank may say, well, we don't have to formally go through the foreclosure. Okay, so this is actually what you were talking about, mailing the keys and say, well, yeah, if it works, you can give your house to me, and I will just not report it, or we can just say, okay, you sell your house to me for so and so value, and we just work it out this way. That is actually you are transferring your property to them. Voluntary conveyance, well, in this case, you choose, not the bank forcing you, but you choose to give them the deed. Okay, deed in lieu of foreclosure. Oh yeah, this is the one that I was talking about. It can be tricky. For example, the presence of a second mortgage will make it problematic for the borrower to simply give a deed in lieu of foreclosure to the first mortgage holder. In that case, the second mortgage will remain in effect and would not be extinguished by a deed in lieu of foreclosure. Yeah, so what is deed in lieu? Instead of saying we force you to foreclosure, we can say let's keep it informal, and you just give it to me voluntarily. You voluntarily give me the deed in lieu of foreclosure. I would not force you to get into foreclosure. So in this case, the note was pointing out that sometimes there are more than one mortgages existing, and then if you give in the deed in lieu of foreclosure for one of the mortgagee, and the other mortgagees will have to work with you, will not really work with you, and they will not forgive you on that. They will have to just pursue their regular process. So the deed in lieu is not automatically forgiving all of the mortgages. Okay, and if that doesn't work, there is the friendly foreclosure, which means that the bank is, you're going through a foreclosure process, but you are willing to cooperate with the bank to go through the whole process. Say that if the bank want to do an appraisal, want to see the detailed situation of the property, and then you allow them to. Okay, so you're not hostile. You're not like, you get off my property. This is my property. You don't ever step on it, into it. Not that kind of situation. Okay. Um, if that doesn't work, there is the prepackaged bankruptcy. There is a standardized kind of process going, so you don't have to pay a lot of money to the legal fee. And of course, there's always the short sale. Okay, so if somebody come to a house and come to your place and say, hey, I offer you a lot of cash, and you can sell it to me immediately, and but I'm not going to pay the full market price of it. That's the short sale. Okay. So once it gets really to foreclosure, then you are on court, right? So there will be different ways of redemption, and I'm getting really thirsty right now. Let's stop for right now, and let's come back, take a 15 minutes break, come back and 3:10. Okay.